Okay, great.
Great, thank you.
So, um, the topic tonight is well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself first of all. So, I own Device Stop, and so I used to manage the store. I managed the store from 2010 until 2018, and then opened a second location. And then in 2023, I had two stores now. And so um, one of the most common things that we deal with is scams and people getting mixed up in these online scams. It's literally probably, I would say, something that I see 3 to 4 times a day. In tax season, that picks up, and it's about 8 to 10 times a day, and that's not an exaggeration. It's very common, and yeah, I would really love to share a little bit about that. And I hope no one takes offense to this, but it is directed towards seniors specifically because that is the most common, victim to the online scams. And so, whether you consider yourself a senior or not, I'll leave that up to anybody watching. But I'm sure that you have seniors in your life, no matter what. So, I know I do, and it's something that I have to deal with phone calls even when I'm not at work. I'll I'll have family call me or family friends call me all the time about situations like this one. So anyway, that being said, my PowerPoint is not quite so pretty as yours is. It's mostly bullet points for to help myself and to help you keep up with just key points, talking points. But as far as aesthetics, it's not all that grand. So bear with me. And I've also never used Zoom. I use Google Hangouts, and so this is new to me a little bit. Um, that was not a diss on Zoom, by the way. Zoom is great. I just typically use Google Hangouts. So I'm going to try to share my screen really quick. Somebody know where that's at by chance? I didn't take the
Yeah,
Zoom.
can you hear me,
I
Matt?
can hear you wonderfully, yes.
Okay, all right. So if you wiggle your mouse, the control center should come up, or it may be at the very bottom of your screen, and you'll see share at the bottom.
Look at that. You're great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Let's see.
You'll probably just want to click on your PowerPoint. There you go.
I'll share the whole screen. So can you all see my screen now?
Not exactly.
Sorry.
No.
I see all the people. No, I don't either.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah.
Now,
All right.
yeah.
And how about now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good news.
Safe. Yeah. Okay.
There we go. All right. So the big thing is, why are seniors prime targets? Because they definitely are the prime target. Um, a couple different things. Trusting nature. That is true. They do have a trusting nature for the most part. Um, Financial stability. That is a very big one. A lot of these scammers, a lot of them originate in Asia. And they're all day, every day, basically calling around and doing phishing emails, which I'll get to in a minute and explain those. But doing these sorts of things, and they're aware that um, seniors fall prey to that type of thing, and so that's their prime audience. They have less digital fluency, and this market knows that. They use fear, urgency, and flattery. They're very good at stroking one's ego in order to get you to share your screen, or in order to get you to download their antivirus software, things such as that. But the big thing is again, you can look at that number at the bottom, over 3.4 billion lost by seniors in 2023. There's not an exact total for 2024 yet. And this is only what's been reported. So it's actually, a lot of individuals are too embarrassed to actually report what they've lost due to scamming. Um, so those numbers are realistically probably about 25% higher than that. But that's a huge number. And that's not just seniors at home, by the way. This is this is something that happens to businesses quite often. A lot that number is actually probably just as high by itself, um, but it's also the seniors that were targeted in an organization that this happens to. Um, there's a couple of different types of online scams. One of the biggest ones that we see is tech support. Um, what'll happen is you'll see a pop-up on your screen. It'll say you have, this many viruses, or you have, it'll start doing a virus counter, or it'll show a bunch of different errors that you have in your registry. I'll actually show you some pictures of them really quick. Did not mean to click that. All right. I just downloaded some quick ones. They're all pretty popular. Um, you'll see stuff like this all the time. Something like this, very common. It'll just be a pop-up, and a lot of the time it like takes over your entire screen. So it'll look more like this. You'll see that one a lot. And it'll be the entire size of your screen, and you won't be able to exit out of the window. That's a very common problem, and that one's probably the most annoying to individuals, just because they can't get out of it. Even if they turn their computer off, when they turn it back on, that pop-up is still right at the center and forefront, and there's no way to exit out of it. There are a couple ways, and I'll teach you that in a minute. But for the most part, to someone who's not familiar with it, it's pretty invasive. All right, so again, that's the pop-ups one. They basically masquerade as a virus, or as a antivirus, or as a program that's telling you how many viruses that you do have, and they're trying to get you to download their software in order to remove said viruses or said errors, or they're trying to pretend that they're Microsoft. And also another one that we've seen that's very common in the tech support field, or the tech support type of scam, is individuals trying to hook up their printer. They'll Google really quick, and they'll say, HP printer support, right? Well, there are hundreds of websites out there that are actually fake HP support scammers that are trying to get you to call their number. And the way that it typically goes is you'll call them, and they'll say, well, we can hook it up for you. You just need to let us have access to your computer. We'll remote in, and, it'll be $100, right? And that's also very common with all types of hardware, but printers in specific is a big one, again, because of the lack of digital fluency for seniors. Yet another one would be QuickBooks and Intuit and TurboTax. A lot of websites will have typos in them. Again, they know that, well, we all make typos, but for seniors in particular, typos are a bigger occurrence. And you'll basically type TurboTax, but you'll put a Z instead of an X, for instance, or you'll put a C instead of an X. And that will be a legitimate website that, link, and it'll take you to a not legitimate TurboTax website. And when you click download the software, or when you click install, or support, that'll be that's the scam, that's the hook. Another one is phishing emails and text, and so that one, I'm sure you've gotten plenty of. Think of scam phone calls. For instance, think of you get telemarketers calling you all day, every day, and that's become a bigger problem even in the past few years. Think of that, but apply it to email and text messages. That is very common. Even for me, I get probably 5 to 10 text messages a day that are fake and trying to get me to follow a link or whatnot. But one of the big ones is for Amazon. You'll get a link that says, "Hey, your Amazon card or your card that you have on file with Amazon was used to purchase, such and such package or such product. And in order to confirm this purchase, you need to come here or you need to follow this link and input your credit card information to verify that it was actually you or wasn't you." Right? That one's very common. There's another one that goes around that's with eBay, um, which is an online alternative for Amazon. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but um, those are very common. And then also ones that sound too good to be true are very common. Meaning they'll say, "Hey, you've got a free gift card for this website or for this online retailer, and click here to claim." But to claim though, you have to sign up for their newsletter or something of the sort. Um, it's just important to make sure that you're following a link that goes to a legitimate website. And I can tell you from experience, the longer the link is, the more fake it is. So if you're wanting to, I don't know why I'm using this example, but if you're following one to, let's say, AmericanEagle.com, right? Um, if it's, something, something, something dot American is eagle.com slash, and then another whole sentence, then it's not real. So the longer the link is, the more suspicious it is for the most part. Um, Another one which is sad to see, but I do see a lot of, is romance scams. Um, this one is something that people don't typically like to talk about, but it is important because it is a big deal and it does happen very, very, very far too often. Um, and again, this one's a lot of this is to seniors, but this is not just to seniors. I've seen a lot of people fall prey to this, but basically, you meet someone online, and they slowly, after 4 to 6 months of getting to know you, sometimes sooner, they start asking for money. And you've never even met this person. You've talked to them online, but you've never seen them. Typically, they refuse to do FaceTimes or Zooms or Google Meets, anything like that, because that would reveal who they really were. Catfishing is another term for it, but the more common goal of it, for the most part, typically is to scam you, to get your finances, to steal your money. And that one's very common. Um, Again, um, a lot of that comes out of India, to be honest with you. Just we've seen a lot of raids there in the past, probably 2 to 3 years of, basically houses that are dedicated to that, or businesses that are dedicated to calling individuals in the United States and getting their information, and not just the United States, but that's a different topic. Anyway, so that one is pretty bad though, because there are feelings involved in that one, and so it does. I don't know. That one hurts worse, and that one's less reported on, but it is extremely common. And actually, there's a couple of companies, one of which is Zelle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Zelle, but um, most banks use Zelle to send payments between one another, or let their users send payments between one another. And now, here in the past 6 months, they've actually started filtering. Before you can send money, you have to agree that you know this person, or that you've met this person, or that it's not a romance driven type scam, and that you actually are aware of who you're sending money to. They've actually started putting um, those types of checks in place. Another one is family impersonation. The grandchild in trouble. That one is super common. You'll get a text message from a strange number, but it's saying it's so and so in your family, and they're in trouble or they're in prison, and they need a payment sent to them, and it can only be sent via a gift card or via a MoneyGram, something of that sort. And that one happens also far too often. Again, I, literally 3 or 4 times a day, I see something of this sort that's on this slideshow right here. The prize lottery scam, that's another big one. And that one, actually, even though it is a big scam and it does happen quite often, it is a little surprising to me that that it does happen as often as it does, because you would think that these scammers would know if someone was that interested in a prize or lottery they may or may not have won, that they probably aren't well to do financially already. And presumably, anyway, it just seems an odd way to scam, in my opinion. But a lot of this isn't just to get your money. A lot of it can also be for getting your identity. Because someone without a lot of finances, they I don't want to get too dark here, but it's easy for that person's identity to be stolen. They don't have a lot going for them. They don't have a lot of a record. They just have a social security number, and that's really all the scammer wants. That in their life, and making sure that no one knows about them, and so they can't do much about it. And so that's a common thing as well. I already went over most of this. I do want to say that this is a very big point, and I say this, I say this probably once a day, but Microsoft does not care about you. That, that may sound a little harsh, but I promise you, they will never ever call you. They have no interest in you being able to activate your computer, or you being able to download something of theirs. It's hard enough to get on the phone with Microsoft if you ever actually needed to. They will never call you. And so if you ever get a call from Microsoft, or even Google, Google is the same way. They have no interest in talking to you. They do everything in their power to not talk to you. And so if you ever get a call pretending to be one of those individuals, or an individual representing that company, please know that is so fake. Um, and typically when they do, you'll know that it's actually one of them, because they'll be using an AI to do it, which I'm not going to go over AI yet, or artificial intelligence yet, but most of the Google calls now, when they do call you, when they call a business, it's typically as an AI agent. It's not actually an individual making the phone call. So um, the family impersonation scams, we went over a lot of that already. The grandma, I'm in jail, that's a real big one. We've had a couple of those, and there's no way to verify it. It's kind of hard to verify that, especially when there wasn't much information on the call. Without being able to call grandma, if grandma can't answer, it's hard to get that. Or if your granddaughter or grandson can't answer, it's hard to figure out if it's true or not. And the whole idea is to use panic and secrecy. Um, they ask for gift cards or wire transfers. I think we mentioned that a little bit, but the gift cards ones is a big one. Nobody wants paid in gift cards, so it's a very strange. That's another strange one to me. Definitely know that nobody will ask you, especially if it's a legitimate thing. There's a lot um, of these type of scammers that will go around to businesses or to individuals who have personal loans, or who have even business loans. And if those business loans are public, they'll call those individuals and say, hey, I'm with such and such bank, and you missed this payment. And so because of that, we need you to pay this, but in order to get it by the deadline, it has to be by a gift card, or by a certified check, or by a whatever it is. But that's their way of keeping it secret in a way, but also getting you to believe it. And a lot of that stuff's public record, especially if it's a business loan, or if it's a personal loan that you've defaulted on, or if it's taxes that you defaulted on. Either way, verify with family directly. Always, please call the individual before you give money, unless you have the person's location on hand and it says they're in prison. Please, verify with the individual, because again, that's a really common one. Went over this, but this might be worth exploring just a little bit. So part of the romance scams, the way that they kind of happen is it's a very fast emotional connection. It's often from abroad, which kind of explains their grammar being a little off, or their punctuation being wrong. They avoid video chat or in-person meetings, and inevitably they do ask for money. So don't send money to someone that you've never met. And that seems like a given, but after, a couple of weeks, or after a month or so, when you become comfortable with a person, you think that you have a relationship with them, it's easier to say, yeah, hey, here's $10. But keep in mind, depending on how you send them that $10, they asked it small, so it seemed like not a big deal, but what they're getting from that $10 is not the $10 necessarily. It's actually the banking information that comes with it. And that's when they steal the money, once they have that access to that. A lot of phishing emails actually seem legit, like they're from Amazon or PayPal or even the IRS. But the big thing is down here where it says hover over the links, never click without verifying. That's a big one. If you hover over a link just with your mouse, it should show you like what the actual link is that you're about to click on. And that's important because again, the longer the link is, probably the more fake that it is. If it doesn't at least have the like if it's Amazon.com / and then you have a legitimate string, it's probably not fake. But if there's a bunch of words in between Amazon and .com, or if there's a bunch of words before Amazon.com, then it probably is fake. Same thing with PayPal, same thing with the IRS. It's just good to double check, because we all know the IRS is never in a hurry to do anything typically. And so if that's the case, then you verifying that you are actually speaking with the IRS is important, and it's okay to take your time doing that. But they always claim the urgent action is needed. But that's, again, we know that's not how that stuff works for the most part. Let's see. I think we went over this. Another one is cryptocurrency. If you are told to pay for something in cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency in and of itself is amoral. There's nothing wrong with cryptocurrency necessarily. However, it is used often for illegal activities and to support illegal activities because of how it's traced and, well, not traced. And so that being said, when someone asks you to pay with that, that's kind of a big sign to know that it's not real, or it's fake, especially if you don't know the individual that you're working with. And actually, I had a customer recently who was trying to buy a cat, and you would be shocked at how many scammers there are on Facebook that say that they, breed or have a certain type of cat, or they have, a certain amount of this particular breed of kitten, and it's kind of wild. And to me, it's rather obvious that it's a scam, um, but to a lot of people, it's not. And be very careful buying an animal or a pet on Facebook, please. Definitely FaceTime the individual. That's the easiest way. Is like say, hey, I don't want to drive 4 hours to pick up this, $1,500 rare breed of kitten, until you FaceTime me and I verified that you were a real person. Please. Um, Also, if you look at someone's Facebook page and supposedly they've been doing this for a while or whatever, and you go to their page and view their profile and they don't have any profile history, and you can't scroll past the past month and a half maybe, then chances are that Facebook page was just created recently. A lot of the scammers, they'll use a Facebook page until they get reported, and then they'll create the same thing again but a different account, and they'll just keep recycling accounts and keep moving on. um, that's one of the key indicators. And another key indicator is if an individual, especially an online seller, if they refuse to use PayPal or a service like Venmo, then it's probably a scam. And the reason that I say this is because PayPal specifically and Venmo, they offer buyer protection, meaning let's say that I was to purchase a kitten for $1,500 and I drive up there and turns out that this individual stole my $1,500 and I don't get a kitten. Well, I can then go to PayPal and say, hey, this individual never gave me the product that I paid for. And PayPal will immediately refund that money to you. Um, and so a lot of scammers don't like to use this because, well, there goes the scam. They can't actually scam it because then PayPal comes after them. Whereas, apps like the Cash App or sending a MoneyGram or a wire transfer, those things don't have buyer protection. And so it's harder to know if it's a scam or not. And it's harder to get your money back if it was a scam. So, how to stay safe. I think we've talked about that a little bit. I've kind of given a couple of general ideas, but the big thing is to pause and verify before acting, because a lot of the time you already know that you probably shouldn't click the link. you probably know that it's too good to be true. Um, and you're probably wondering why in the world Microsoft is calling you. But out of, an abundance of caution, instead of, not following the link or talking to the individual on the phone, we see that the opposite happens. Out of an abundance of caution, they instead think, well, just in case, I should probably go ahead and let them take a look to make sure that I don't have these viruses. And so, what I'll tell you is the thing that you need to fear is not the viruses that you might have. It's the individual calling and telling you that you do indeed have them, and that you should let them on, your computer. That's the bigger red flag to look out for. Keep software and antivirus updated because they update definitions and they update websites and they update links that are safe to download and links that aren't safe to download. And those are called definition files. And so when you try to download a link and your antivirus says, hey, we recognize that, and that's a virus, it'll tell you that and it'll stop you from being able to do it. So the more that you update it, the more you can keep track of that. And talk to someone before sending money. If you can talk to 2 or 3 different people and they're all like, hey, that seems fishy to me, then, maybe it's fishy and you should wait. And it's always good to get a second opinion. Also, really quick, I wanted to let you all know that change of plans. My kids are actually here at the moment. I will need a 3-minute pause, if that is okay,
Okay,
and possible.
yeah.
Um,
No, that's possible. No problem.
is that okay?
Yes, no
Okay,
problem.
I'm sorry about that. Give me just 1 second.
I need some
All right.
drink.
Yep.
So everybody at home is taking a break. Do you all
Yeah.
need a break?
I like something happened, what he just said there reminded me, something that happened to me this afternoon. I had my phone set, anytime my credit card's used, I get a notice. Okay, so this afternoon about 3 o'clock, my phone dinged and said, you just made an Amazon payment of $27. Well, I hadn't been on Amazon, Tim hadn't been on Amazon, I went to Amazon account, didn't show I'd ordered anything. Took up Chase, cancel that card. So now I gotta wait 3 to 5 days to get a new card. But it showed right up there. But anyway, that's a really cool device if your bank does it. Anytime my credit card's used, I get a notice right here. And this is with me most of the time.
I had to call PNC this morning. I got an email that said they were gonna take $490 out of my account within 24 hours because of cyber protection company. So I called PNC this morning and they said it is a scam, but check tomorrow to make sure of anything and then call us
Most of those,
immediately.
I get some of those too from PayPal and
Yeah.
others. I just ignore them, but
Well, this was the first one I got that, but what was suspicious that the email was a Gmail. And I thought no company is going to use Gmail.
Hmm.
So, but I.
yeah, and actually, before you respond to something, when you get an email, right underneath where your name and the subject, there's, if you reply, it shows you who it's going to. And if it says like PC Chase, no, that's not
No.
Chase. You may see the Chase and think, oh, that's it. Well, it's not. So you gotta be real careful.
Oh, I didn't click on anything. I called PNC, but what is that little thing? Is that through your bank?
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna call my bank.
I
That's wrong.
found mine online. I called mine. I just looked online and said, do you want to sync this to your phone?
Oh, I'm calling
Yeah,
them. Get it down. I don't
anyway,
know.
it's a good tool.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either.
Do that.
Yeah, the current scams are like the toll roads too. Is everybody getting toll roads? Yeah. And it doesn't really work with us here because we don't have very many, but having been in Florida just recently and we were trying to avoid a toll road because we had a rental car and we weren't sure exactly how that was going to work. So soon after that, we both got it. I thought, well, they don't know that I was in the car and rented the car. It wasn't my, so it was very obvious.
But like if you live in Louisville, where you go back and forth to Indiana,
Yeah,
it's
true.
$5 a crack, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm, that's
So,
true, that's true. So we do have some tolls here. So,
Oh, okay.
Terry told me something, when you get that thing,
we did have, an office supervisor who actually had gotten something, an email from UPS. And she thought didn't think it was authentic, but there were some things that were happening in her life that she thought, well, maybe they are having a hard time delivering it. So she went to the UPS store and said, is this legitimate? And they said, oh yeah, it looks legitimate to us. And she just still was a little, skeptical about it. And she just did some more research, and it wasn't there. It wasn't from them. So you just have to be, and I think AI is even making them more smooth. You're not gonna have the strange wording or something that tips you off,
Yeah.
because AI does it. All right, you're back, Matt.
I'm back.
Okay.
All right. I heard you overheard you talking about AI. That is a big one, and that wasn't something I'd planned on talking about, but I do want to touch on that if that's all right with you guys.
So,
Okay. So there is a lot with AI, and it would probably blow your mind with what AI is fully capable of. Um, I will say that voice synthesizers are also um, pretty common now. I would say about 50% of the assistants that you actually speak with on the phone, especially for larger companies, are AI. You think you're actually finally talking to a person, but most of the time you're not. You're still talking to an AI, and you don't know. It's not like the the times when you used to call and it was like a robot, and you're like, I just want to talk to a person. This, you're pretty sure you're talking to a person. But you're really not, because they're capable of doing voice synthesizing, and so basically they can listen to you say about 4 or 5 sentences, and then they can say anything in your exact tone, your exact pitch, your exact voice, everything, even down to your accent. And you can write anything for it to say, and it can tell that if you just say a couple of sentences into it. And so a lot of the phone calls that you actually get where, you pick it up and you're like, hello, hello, can anybody hear me? That's actually them getting your voice. And if they do that 5 or 6 different times in the course of a week or a month, they've got enough data on you at that point in order to recreate your voice. And you would be none the wiser. Super common, especially with the scam of, a grandchild calling a grandmother from a different phone number or something. It sounds just like them, and it's more common than you would think. It's kind of it's exponentially speeding up as well. So that's not going away anytime soon, and it's just going to get worse. And you know, the government's trying to figure out how to counter a lot of that, but it's still a new space, and so it's hard to counter it quick enough because you put in a law today, and then in a couple of weeks, it's that's blown out of the water with something that's far more capable than that. So it's also talk to a teacher with some of the stuff that kids turn in for homework or essays or any of that stuff, and it's very hard to get control of that because AI can write a 5,000 word essay in about 30 seconds, and if you don't use a program that specifically checks to see if it's AI, you wouldn't know. I can promise you that you would not know if it was AI or not unless you use a program. And the only reason that a program catches it is because it's another AI able to detect subtle patterns in speech, which the average person wouldn't be able to catch anyway. And the only reason the teachers are able to catch it is because they've spoken with the individual who supposedly wrote this. And they're like, I know for a fact that that person did not write this because that's not their tone. That's not the way they talk. And they didn't know these things. So, but it's very common. It's a real problem. And that's going to become a real issue with these sorts of scams, specifically the voice ones. And then even FaceTime, honestly, because I hate to go here, but I'm sure you all have heard of deep fakes, and people being able to literally make a video. I can have artificial intelligence right now create a commercial for me easily. I mean, I enter a prompt and say, hey, this is the type of feel that I want it to have. This is the type of look I want it to have. This is what I want the topic to be of the commercial. I want an individual walking this way and grabbing a can of soda from the refrigerator and then pouring it in a red Solo cup. And guess what? That is exactly what AI will give me. And it'll only be about a 10-second clip, but that's pretty impressive. AI can do that, and you wouldn't be able to recognize that was AI generated. You would think somebody recorded that on a camera. It's really cool, but it's also extremely scary with what people could do with it, and are doing with it. Anyway, enough rant on AI. I could have a whole different thing on AI. I use AI on a regular basis, and I love AI. It helps me quite a bit, especially when it comes to, I know a lot of hardware when I'm working on a computer, but there are a lot of commands that you would type into a command prompt that I don't remember offhand. There are a lot of doctors in lawyer offices who use AI because it's impossible to keep track of entire textbooks in your head. However, AI can do it and do recall within milliseconds of anything that's ever written, in any textbook you hand it. And you just simply click upload and it's able to, read the entire thing in milliseconds. And it can spit it back at you and summarize the whole book if you asked it to, again, within seconds. And so it is a very powerful tool. But with all powerful tools, it depends on who's using it. So that's kind of the realm we're in and what we have to watch out for. And again, different topic. All right, give me 1 second. Let me get back to my slideshow real quick. How was the break, by the way? You all okay?
Yeah.
Am I going too fast? I feel like I am.
You're good. Fine.
All right. All right. So use call screening and spam filters. We'd already mentioned the pause and verify before acting. Call screening and spam filters are pretty important. And also, this is one of those cases where AI actually can help you. Most email apps these days, whether you're aware of it or not, they use AI in their spam filtering. And so basically, if you report spam, if you say, "Hey, this email was spam," or this email was a phishing email, the email that you have, let's say it's Gmail, for instance, will start to categorize those sorts of emails and that sort of language in the email as spam. And so at some point, you won't have to keep marking spam because you'll stop getting it. Now, your inbox is technically still receiving these emails, but since you've showed the artificial intelligence that Google uses what is spam in your opinion, it has automatically started sifting through that for you. So in that sense, it can be helpful. Again, it just depends on who's using it and why they're using it. But it is important to have that so that you don't have to worry as much. You don't have to, screen these things yourself. We talked about definitions and antivirus software and why that's important. Talking to somebody before sending money. Counsel's never a bad idea. If you fall victim to this, though, the biggest thing that you need to do is stop communicating with the person. You don't need to be polite anymore. Once you're aware, or even and honestly, if you suspect they're stealing your money, they probably are. You don't need to yeah, you really don't need to feel bad about that, but a lot of people will be like, "Hey, I'm ready to get off the phone now," or they don't want to hang up on someone, or they don't want to stop communication immediately. They want to be polite. And I'm telling you right now, the longer that you're on there, again, remember AI can summarize an entire book to you within a matter of milliseconds. Okay. So the longer that you stay connected to someone that is connected remotely through your computer, or even on the phone with you, every millisecond does count. They could be transferring files in the background unbeknownst to you. And so as soon as you're aware of what's going on, you need to stop communication. And a lot of the time, especially with your computer, that looks like just closing your laptop lid or completely turning it off and removing the battery. A lot of computers these days don't have a removable battery, so the best thing to do is just hold the power button down until the screen goes black. That kills all internet connectivity to the computer. Um, and the reason I say to do that is because either A, remove the battery, or just push the power button down until the screen goes black, is because a lot of the time, one of the first things that hackers will do is they will put a script on your computer that basically uh, means, or the script basically enacts a certain set of protocols. One of those protocols is to, even if you close your lid on your laptop, you'll think that solved it, right? But part of the script that they put on your computer was to say, hey, even if the user closes their lid, still keep internet connectivity in the background, right? So you'll think you're safe, but again, and you've left it there sitting all night and they've had access to your computer the whole night because you didn't actually put the computer to sleep like you normally would have because, they changed that protocol. That's something that does happen. Um, and again, a lot of the commands that they can run in the background happen instantly. There's scripts that can basically copy and paste to them every password that you've ever typed on your computer that's in your saved passwords file, and that only takes a couple of seconds. It's not a long process where they have to do a bunch of hacking. Like once you've granted them access or downloaded a piece of software and said, "Yes, please install this," and help me get rid of all these viruses I have. As soon as you hit accept, that's it. It only takes a few seconds after that. Um, the next thing you would need to do is contact your bank or credit card company because, again, if they can steal your passwords file, the first thing that they do as soon as they get those password files is log into your bank or credit card. And as soon as they get there, the first thing they do is they change your recovery email address and your recovery phone number to their email address and their phone number. That way, if you were to try to get back in and you were to say, hey, send me a reset link to my email or to my phone number, well, guess what? Guess who gets that? It's not you, it's the hacker. And again, this all happens in a matter of seconds. So that's why this is important. People don't realize it happens so quickly in the background. It's also important to report this to these different organizations, the FTC, the FBI, or in the local police. And again, sure, it's sort of embarrassing. However, at the same time, if you don't do that, then no one knows what tactic they used. And the way that these viruses get their definition, or these antivirus softwares get their definitions updated, is by getting reports from users. And so if users don't report, then it's impossible for them to protect you in the future. Same thing with the screening of your email and your spam. Like I said, the AI of that email provider learns what spam is over time when you get it in your inbox. And as you report it, you have to report it less and less because it's doing its job and it's learned what is spam. Same thing here. Your antivirus learns in the same way. The more you report stuff, the more it'll be aware of what to look out for. And that doesn't just help you; that helps every user that uses that antivirus. All right. I think I said this earlier, but trust your instinct. Trust your instincts. Slow down and verify, and don't let the thing you're afraid to do be to not let the person look at your computer because you're worried about the viruses. Let the thing that you're scared of be the person that is trying to somehow be this really kind person that's just offering to help from Microsoft. They're $1 billion company. They don't need they're not going to call you. They pay a lot of money to make sure they don't have to. And tell people about this stuff. Share this info with friends and family. Not too much though, because I still do want to have customers. So But I'm joking mostly. Report scams to help others. Again, keep this stuff reported. That's why it's important. It's just like a burglar out in the streets, a thief. If you don't report them, then they're just going to do it again, and it's going to continue to happen. It's going to become a bigger problem. So, um, yeah, I'll open the floor to questions if that's okay. If y'all have any,
Sure.
I'm sure you do.
Could you please tell us how to get rid of the pop-up that takes up your whole entire screen?
That's hilarious. Yes, I actually put that in my notes to go over because I knew it would get asked. So it really depends on which one it is. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get out of this light, but like it's confusing me because apparently I'm dyslexic or it's backwards. Perfect, sort of. Anyway, so F11, sometimes function F11, that exits full screen. Now, a lot of scammers and hackers know this. They know that trick, and so that doesn't work. So there's another thing that I'll tell you, because I'd say it's about 50-50. 50% of the time, if you press function F11 or just F11, it depends on your laptop or your computer, that will either enter full screen or exit full screen if it's in one of those modes. The next thing you can do is to try Alt F4. That immediately close. Don't do it right now, though, please, because if you do, if you try it right now, you'll close out of the window you're on. But Alt F4 closes out of whatever open window you have in front of you. And so that doesn't always work, though, again, because, again, scammers are aware of these little tricks. So there's another one, and this one's pretty hard to get around, meaning it's hard for a hacker to know to stop you from being able to do this one. But this one, again, don't do it right now. You'll lock yourself out of your computer if you try right now. But it's just Control Alt Delete. That takes you to your lock screen, to your login screen.
I'm
And
sorry, what was that? Would you
Con-
repeat that?
yes, Control Alt Delete all at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And
Okay.
that one will
Thank
take you to your login screen. From there, you I'm trying to think of how in depth I should tell you to go, but from there you would go to what's called Task Manager, and it gives you that option. Like after you press Control Alt Delete, it will give you a list of options. I would recommend you probably just shut it down, just in case. But one of the things that you can do is go to Task Manager, and it will show you a list of all of the things that are currently running on your computer. Now, I'll be honest, you're not going to know what 90% of the things are on that list. Because I'll be honest, I don't know 90% of the things that are on that list. But I know the 10% that are important. But since this was a pop-up, chances are it's going to be a browser window. So either, a Google Chrome icon or a Microsoft Edge icon or an Internet Explorer icon, one of those. You're going to want to close out of all of those. You can just right click it and click End Task, and that will end the window. That will close it out. And I know that was a lot of info, so forgive me. I'm trying to decide what info to go in depth on, but that should do it in I would say 75-80% of cases. That'll get rid of that window. But on some of the worst ones, the best thing you can do is just shut the computer off and go to your car or go outside away from your router, and then turn the computer back on. That way it can't get internet. And the reason I say this is because a lot of those pop-ups, they rely on an active internet connection to be able to pop up. And so if you go outside or you go away from the internet to where you're not on Wi-Fi any longer, when you turn your computer on, it won't have that pop-up window, or it'll be able to be exited. You'll be able to close out of it. That's another one. And that works for about the other, well, for another 10% of them. 5% of them, you just need to turn it off and you need to bring it to me. But for the most part, that should take care of a lot of the pop-ups like that. What's next?
What is the spam filter you use?
So every email provider has their own like spam filter. It's not really a specific like third party spam filter. Um, it's typically something that just comes with your email.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Would you recommend turning your computer off every night rather than just closing it out? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah. That's complicated. I wouldn't close it out every night. But I also don't accidentally click a lot of stuff while I'm using it. And so
Why wouldn't you close it out? If you don't mind explaining it just a little bit more.
yeah,
Shut
no, I'm
it
thinking,
down is what I'm.
yeah, you can shut it down. I don't shut mine down just because putting it to sleep 99% of the time is fine. You close the lid, it puts it to sleep,
Mhm,
and you don't have to worry about background activity because it puts the drive to sleep as well. However,
mhm.
if your activity on prior to doing this was, talking to a romantic partner that you've never met, then I probably wouldn't leave it on all night, if that
Right,
makes sense.
mhm.
Or if I just followed a suspicious link and managed to close out of the pop up that had just happened, but I felt safe, but I was ready to go to bed, I'll just close the lid. I probably wouldn't do that. Does that make sense? Um,
Yeah, it does, yeah. Mhm,
just because you don't know what could be happening in the background, and so it's
mhm.
best to shut it off, especially if something you know suspicious happened beforehand.
Right, thank you.
Okay, sounds like we have run out of our questions. Matthew, I think you really covered things very thoroughly,
You
and
did.
we really appreciate it. I think it's important for us just to hear these things over and over. We've heard some of the things that you mentioned, but it's a good refresher, and it just reminds us not to fall victim for sure.
Yeah. And if you ever want me to come back and talk about AI, I would love to do that. There's a
I
lot to watch out for
actually,
AI.
Actually, that's kind of a segue into May. I actually have Dr. Conesser from UK coming to talk about AI next
I want to
month.
watch that.
All right. Well, you can join us, okay?
I'm going to.
Yeah, he's
Thank
really
you.
good. We've had him here twice before, and so he has a pretty good following. So we will have him next month. So
All
be
right.
sure to stay tuned and look at the newsletter. The article will be in the May newsletter.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all. And thank you so
Yeah.
much,
Yep.
Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks.